Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. Today, I'm going to show you how to unveil the secret with a magical wand. We are going to make an item that you can use on quests, either in your own LARP adventures or something that you hold for somebody else. This is a mechanical that we found out about from the largest LARP in the world, Conquest, when we went there. It was super fun to play with, and I can't wait to share it with you. So without much further ado, let's jump right into it and level up this skill. Alright, so let me set the scene for you. You've walked into a professor's laboratory, and on his desk sits a whole bunch of notes. You, the intrepid adventurer that you are, have been sent to try to figure out what kind of dastardly things he's been working on. And though to the naked eye they seem to be fairly normal, you know that if you put your magical light over them, you might see something a little extra. Game mechanics wise, when we ran across this, we thought it was super cool. Basically, they would put some kind of secret message or something written in a special ink that only shows up in blacklight. Then the magic users of this world would create all of these different really cool things that allow you to see in that spectrum. They would frame it as in they're like casting a spell, or they have a magic item that lets them see things that other people can't see. And it did. It literally let you see things other people couldn't see, and it was so cool. And since our resident crow / pain in the ass Maddie was also going to be a magic user, we decided to make her some sort of an item that will do this as well. The general idea was that she'd have some sort of a magical wand of some sort with a crystal mounted to the top of it. Which means we had to do two things. One, we had to find some sort of a crystal that we could mount that would let the light go through, and then also we need something that made the black light. For the crystal, we actually decided to make our own. To do this, we picked up some of this easy cast product from Michael's. Mostly because it is really easy to use. It's just kind of a two-part mixture that you put together. Now, to actually make it the shape of a crystal, I ordered a bunch of these little silicone crystal molds from Amazon. Then shows out which one I thought would fit best. The plan is to mount whatever crystal we make onto this blacklight flashlight here. Basically, it'll just kind of sit on the top of it like a little crystal on a wand. So to mix the Easy Cast, I didn't do anything fancy like weigh it or whatever. I just kind of poured both pieces in, trying to keep it as even as possible. Then I went back in with a stick and just made sure it was all very thoroughly mixed together. Once that was all good, I poured it into the mold, making sure I poured it against that stick, just to help keep it from forming too many bubbles. Basically, whenever you're pouring something like this, if you kind of just pour it directly in or you pour it from too high up, it hitting the rest of it that's in the cup is gonna form little air bubbles. Basically, think of like you're pouring water in a pitcher from far up, right? You're gonna see a bunch of bubbles inside of it. You want to avoid that as much as you can. And this stuff takes like no time to dry, so in short order, we had a perfect little crystal. And just as we hoped, it totally lets the light shine through. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, from here, I wasn't positive how to stick the crystal to the actual flashlight itself. I thought of a bunch of different ways to do it, but then I realized I'm just overthinking it, and I decided to use some hot glue. Just putting a little dab on the bottom to stick it in place, and then using some more around the edges to make sure it didn't go anywhere. Honestly, sometimes it is the simplest thing that works the best, and this really worked well. Again, the light shines right through that crystal, and the whole thing looks really cool when it's turned on. Which I'm real glad, because I was making this thing kinda under the gun. Honestly, this last half of the year, I'm made to travel so much that I barely have enough time to actually eat food, much less wait for something to stick to a flashlight. Which is why I am super grateful for today's sponsor, Athletic Greens. AG1 by Athletic Greens is a nutritional supplement that helps with immune support, energy, recovery, focus. Basically everything I need to make sure that I'm actually a working human being while I travel. Now, I don't know if you know this, but a diet of whiskey and gummy worms, it's really not the best thing for you. I've done a lot of research with those particular ones. AG1 makes it super easy, just adding it to the shaker, putting in some water, and then shaking it up for some instant nutrition. And I'm not gonna lie, it actually tastes really good. Not only that, but it also comes in these little travel packets as well, so it's easy to mix up on the go. And not only does it have probiotics, so it's good for your gut health, but it also helps me with my focus and energy, which means I'm not just drinking a gallon of coffee a day. Cause I do. I drink a lot of coffee. Now, if you're interested to give it a try, you're in luck. Just head to my link in the description below to get a 1-year supply of this AG D3 Plus K2, as well as 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase of AG1. Again, huge thank you to AG1 for sponsoring our content. All right, so at this point, we basically just have like a flashlight with a crystal on it, which I mean, it'll work, but it doesn't really look in world, right? It doesn't fit in with that fantasy setting. So my answer to make this look a little bit more like it belongs is to take a piece of chrome tan leather and just kind of wrap it around that flashlight. To do this, I decided to use a baseball stitch here just because I really like how it looks, and I know for a fact it holds nice and strong. Now, just last week, I released a whole episode on how to stitch leather, but of course, I didn't add this stitch to it. No, the whole point of that video is so I can point to it and be like, if you want to know how to do that, check out here. And the first stitch I do afterwards isn't on that video. Good job, you. Luckily, it is a very easy stitch to do. Basically, you're going to need 2 needles on either end of a length of thread. Just so you can more clearly see it, I tied a red and white thread together to help differentiate each side of the stitch. First things first, pass both needles out of the top holes from the back to the front. From there, we're going to take one side and pass it diagonally down through the next hole in the line. Notice that I'm actually going from the back instead of from the front. Once that's pulled taut, we do the same thing with the other side, going diagonally down and behind the piece of leather to come back through that hole. Then we just repeat doing the same exact thing, always moving diagonally to the next hole and coming from the back side. Doing this leaves us with these little angled shapes pointing downward in your classic baseball stitch. It also butts both pieces of leather together and helps everything stay nice and clean. I didn't get on camera, but when you finish it off, you just kind of pass it through the back and then you tie it off into a knot. Super simple stitch and looks really clean. All right, so now that we've got that whole kind of top section wrapped in leather, I noticed that the bottom area here is still exposed. That's actually where the bottom unscrews so that you can put batteries in it. And I didn't want to cover this up too much because you're gonna need to change the batteries eventually. Still though, that's gonna need to be covered up somehow. So I decided the best way to do that is actually to just use some of this leather cordage to hide that kind of black metallic finish. To hold it in place, I just added tiny dabs of hot glue and then wrap the cordage around the flashlight. This gives me a nice finished look while still allowing me to get to those batteries. Now on the other side of it, we have a crystal, but it's also kind of just held together by hot glue, and that looks a little grody. So we want to cover that up as well. To do that, I decided to just use some jute cordage. First, I formed a little loop that stuck up towards the top of the crystal. Then, making sure that loop stayed in place, I proceeded to wrap the cordage all around the bottom of the crystal. Once I was happy with how much coverage I was getting, I passed that tail end through the loop and then pulled it tightly down through the other side. This locks in that tail end underneath all of the cordage and helps to pull everything nice and tight. Then for just a little extra interest, I just kind of crisscrossed that cordage and tied it off down at the bottom. This kind of left me with this 2 hanging tails on my mystical little light. Though it just still kind of felt a little plain, I wanted to jazz it up just a bit and kind of make it more special for Maddie. So I went out and I bought a kind of a variety of beads. These I carefully threaded onto those little pieces of jute that were hanging down, alternating between the metal and the wood. Then at the end, to hold them all in place, I just tied a couple of knots. This is super simple, but I think it added just a little extra something to it. Finally, because she is our little blackbird harbinger of evil on the channel, I thought it'd be cool to add these black feathers to the mix. To stick them in place, all I did was add a little bit of super glue to the end of the feathers and then neatly tuck them underneath the beads. And honestly, I really like how that looks. It's super slick. And if you're making your own, you can decorate it as much as you want. You can add more to it so it's like a longer thing. You can paint up and down the sides. I don't know, I'd be really interested to see what you come up with. But now's the moment of truth. Let's test this thing out. So again, you stumble across the artifacts and documents on this desk. And though the messaging is cryptic, you feel like there's something more there. So you decide to turn the lights down low and scan it with your wand. And ho ho ho, what is this? Could it be a password, a code of some sort? I mean, who can say? I'm sure somebody could figure that out. But again, this is a really cool mechanic, right? Like you can have these hidden messages. By the way, I just bought that like black light marker off of Amazon. But you can put a whole bunch of stuff on there. Maybe make a cipher and you're underlining certain letters or pointing to important information. Or maybe there's like, you know, a music sheet where only the particular notes are placed. And if they play it on the piano, it opens a door. I don't know, go nuts with it. There's so many cool things you can do with something like this. Now, I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, why don't you give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. Oh, and also, last episode, I decided to give away some keychains that I had made out of leather. The 10 of you that are victorious in this quest are listed in the description below. Just make sure you send me an email with where you want those keychains sent, and they'll be on their way. Again, special thanks to AG1 for sponsoring this episode. Now get out there and solve a mystery, and in the meantime, keep leveling up, you. You made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that. It's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do any of this without them. Seriously, their generosity is the only thing that keeps this thing running and makes it so that we can afford to buy all the stuff we need to do these awesome projects. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can click on one of these videos here that YouTube thinks you like, and that'd be awesome too. I'm gonna look for hidden clues while you wait. Nope, nothing here. I'll keep searching, you click.